So we're super excited for episode number 11, guys, of the Real Side of Real Estate, where we keep it raw and uncut. We have the owner of Legal Second Suites, Ken Bekendam, on with us. How are you, sir?
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's awesome to be in your studio and chat about real estate development, making units, and just finding the highest and best use for properties.
Man, we got a lot of questions for you, brother.
There's a ton to go over. Yeah.
Ton to go over. So, Ken, you're based out of Hamilton, right?
So I have an office downtown Hamilton. I actually live in Brantford, Brant County to be more specific. I just have a little hobby farm out in the country with my animals.
Nice.
And brings me a lot of peace and enjoyment.
Nice. You got some animals too, eh?
Yeah, I got a bunch of animals, some alpacas and pigs and goats. And
oh, nice, nice.
Yeah,
you got some acreage there? Or?
Yeah, just like 8 acres.
Oh, nice, nice. A lot of lawn to cut.
yeah. No, but you know what? In this crazy world that we live in, there's nothing better than just going back to the farm.
Nice,
peace and quiet. I can jump on my lawnmower, crack a beer, just relax.
For sure. That must be amazing. I'm looking at stuff like that now. It's just so costly.
Yeah.
So Ken, tell me, how did you get started with this business, this Legal Second Suites? So Ken specializes in duplexes, triplexes, bigger land development stuff.
Yeah.
All kinds of different things that you're looking to convert. Do you even do severances? Do you do severances also?
Yeah. We do lots of, basically we're doing all sorts of like land use planning, architectural development permits, applications of all sorts of types and sizes of projects. But kind of before I got into the land development world, if you will, I was actually working for a landscape architect, a landscape designer. I was a landscape designer. That was my background. That's what I went to school was for landscaping.
Oh, wow.
But it's through that kind of career path, if you will, that I kind of gained my CAD skills, my architectural CAD skills.
I see.
But my side hustle at the time was real estate investing. I grew up in a real estate family. Like my dad was an investor. He was buying rental properties. So as a kid growing up, we had these rental properties around our family. Like I remember as a kid kind of going in and helping my dad steam clean carpets and
nice.
Strip wallpaper. And,
nice.
There's lots of wallpaper back in the day, right? So lots of
day.
stripping of wallpaper. So that's kind of like my childhood, youth growing up. So kind of just being exposed to it. When I became of age and more mature, I started buying my own properties. And I started with some bungalow conversions, McMaster student rentals.
Oh, you did the McMaster thing. Oh, great.
Yeah. So, my first purchase was a condo, but my first real investment was a student rental property.
Really?
So it was basically like a bungalow. My wife and I at the time, we lived in there. And we converted our basement into a little basement apartment. We put some max students in there.
Did you make it legal?
So that one was not legal because at the time,
they didn't need to be.
They didn't have the zoning bylaws in place to really permit the legalization of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of how I got started. I started with some bunch of student rentals. I ended up buying a couple more in the area.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to a point where I had enough cash flow from my student rentals. It was exceeding my take-home paychecks from my full-time job.
So that's how it always happens.
So that's for me, that was my trigger point where I was like, okay, I'm getting more income from the student rentals than my full-time job. I'm going to quit and go full-time real estate.
That's amazing.
And so that was in 2018.
That was not too long ago,
when
right?
I quit and was able to go full-time. And then at that time, that's when I incorporated my company, King Homes, Inc., and I kind of started the legalsecondsuites.com business, focusing on helping other people create basement apartments. I was doing it for myself already. I was doing my own drawings, my own permit submissions. And I started helping, a couple investors here and there with their projects. Great. And then I saw that there's a real opportunity, a real need to focus on this. And so that's when I started the company. And then, I just really scaled up from there.
That's amazing.
And this was all happening at the time in the real estate market when we were seeing a huge boom and increase in demand and interest in secondary units.
For sure.
And so, I was kind of right there at the right time to kind of really capitalize on that type of investing. Yeah.
For sure. So are most of your properties in Hamilton, Brantford area, or?
Yeah. So the core of my portfolio is still Hamilton and Brantford.
Oh,
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
So you're still holding on to a few of these.
Yeah. I'm still, very much an active investor. So I have my, half decent sized portfolio. I'm not like crazy huge.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
I'm not a little mom and pop investor either.
That's awesome.
I've been doing it long enough and getting into bigger and bigger projects. So, just really just seeing opportunity and just pursuing it.
Yeah.
And just trying to find creative ways to increase density in properties, but still doing it all legal.
Yeah.
I'm still a big proponent in doing things the right way, doing things legally, following the city processes as, frustrating as they can be.
It could be frustrating, yeah.
But it's just kind of making sure you take it through the right process.
And it's it adds a lot of value, Ken. Like I have a few duplexes. I only hold on to multifamily myself.
Yeah.
Single family, only single family I have is the one I own and I live in, right? Like my primary residence. But the multifamilies, like, they have helped me myself with my, wanting to do more things with the cash flow, right?
Yeah.
You got the cash flow, and I had a few illegal ones, and if someone were to call the city, or if there's a complaint, then you have a big issue.
Yeah.
And then it's not an easy issue to deal with, right? Now you have to fire rate everything. You got to get the smoke detectors. You got to have the egress windows. And I'm just talking about duplexes here, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of these houses were not built that way.
Yeah.
A lot of these houses that were built in the 40s or 50s were not built that way.
Yeah.
Some of the ones on the mountain, let's say the bungalows, yeah, you could do it. It's not that bad. The ones with the milk boxes, what I'm talking about, those bungalows. But some of the houses down the hill, you got the short height in the basement. You don't have the windows. So, it's always better. I completely agree with you. It's always better to do it the legal way, because not only are you making it safe for someone to live down there if there's any issues or anything like that, you're also adding ton of value, the resale value.
100%. Like there's a lot of reasons why we want to legalize. Mm-hmm. Like there's obviously you can at the end of the day, it makes you sleep well at night, because
for sure.
that a neighbor can't complain on you. That a tenant can't hold you hostage because they found out that they're in an illegal unit.
Yeah.
You don't have the city bothering you. There's liability concerns there, right? And so it's just and then the number one reason is legal income. We now have legal sources of income from a property, which helps us qualify for more
and that's
lending,
massive, right? For refinancing.
And that's
purposes.
so underestimated. Like people don't realize that if it's not a legal unit, a bank may not recognize it as legal income,
100%.
right? Because that unit could get shut down tomorrow, and that source of income is gone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of benefits why we legalize, and obviously provincial policy and zoning bylaws have changed so much in the last couple years here that it makes it a lot easier for people to actually go and do it properly.
They're actually pushing people to do it now. Like we're talking about it off camera before, where the zoning has changed so much in Hamilton, and I'm a Hamiltonian. I was like born here pretty much, where they're allowing 4 units on one single family. Where I remember when I started duplexing like 7-8 years ago, it was so difficult to just get a duplex approved, right?
Yeah.
And now they're allowing 4 units on a single family with the R1 zoning, which is pretty massive.
Yeah,
right?
like Hamilton's always been very progressive, I think, when it comes to especially like the 2 to 4 unit conversions, these small secondary dwelling units. They've always been more progressive, even allowing 4 unit conversions before provincial policy really mandated it. Mm-hmm. And obviously I'm a big Hamilton guy here. My business is based here, like the good core of my business is Hamilton properties. Mm-hmm. And my job has gotten easier, if you will.
Yeah.
I'm at committee of adjustment a lot less because they have done some good work in cleaning up their bylaws and reducing parking requirements and
that was massive. The side by side
requirements and like a lot of stuff they've cleaned up to make it easier for people to do it as of right.
100%, I agree with you.
Yeah.
I remember doing a duplex. You had to have side by side.
Yeah.
And I had to. Some of these properties, they don't have the width in the front.
Well, they've gotten rid of the parking requirements for the first 3 units on a lot. You don't have to have a parking. If you have,
That's
huge. Have a 4th unit, then yes, you still need 1 parking. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we used to have to do a lot of driveway expansions.
Yeah.
To allow for 2 parking spaces, side by side, because One thing Hamilton doesn't allow is tandem parking.
Yeah.
So we still have to have two, unencumbered spaces.
Mm-hmm.
But we're definitely seeing a shift happening in this kind of market, if you will. We're seeing a lot of our investor clients who did start out in doing duplex conversions. They're now moving into 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever conversions because the numbers aren't great on a 1, 2, or 3. Even a 4-unit conversion is not really solid. And so out of for them to get the return on investment that they're seeking, they have to scale up and they have to get into more dense projects.
Yeah, and it makes sense. It makes sense. It definitely makes sense.
But we're seeing a lot of the everyday homeowner now, the general public, coming in behind them and doing secondary units and garden suites and laneway suites and all of that stuff, the small ADUs. They're doing it out of affordability reasons. They need to be doing it just so that they can afford their mortgage payment.
And you just touched on the ADUs. That's becoming a big thing right now.
Yeah.
The ADUs in Hamilton are becoming huge.
Well, what we're seeing is now the general public is really now coming on board with the idea. You rewind and you go back, 3, 4 years ago, we applied for minor variance to put an ADU in, and we'd have the whole neighborhood come out and fighting us.
There'd be complaints,
that's
right?
The general public.
Yeah.
The general public wasn't really educated on ADUs. And we still saw a lot of like NIMBYism, strong NIMBYism about them. That tide has shifted, right? The public consensus has shifted on that because now housing affordability is affecting everybody, right?
It's a huge issue.
And now, like we've seen politicians change their tune on it. Now it's almost like everything goes. When it comes to housing, trying to get more housing units, like. Minor variances are getting approved like left, right, and center.
Mr. Dudzik is busy.
So which is great, I'm less concerned. If I have to go to community of adjustment now for something, I'm less concerned about it because the general consensus is that, we're trying to get more housing built.
And that's the mandate, right? And that's the mandate. And you know what? The builders are not building fast enough, Ken. They're not building fast enough. And we have a shortage, massive shortage.
Yeah.
And that's why these things have just spiraled, right? Since, imagine from the time you started 2018 until now, we've had a whirlwind of changes.
Oh yeah.
It's and it's not that long ago, but so many changes have happened to make your life a little bit better and easier in terms of servicing your clients and saying, hey guys, you could put 4 units, you could put 3 units on this now, right?
Yeah, I definitely haven't. As I guess an up-and-coming developer or as a developer now, I have it much easier compared to the old guys before me. You talk to some of these old Italian developers who've been in the game for 30, 40 years. They might be a bit jaded or crusty about city politicians and stuff. Yeah. But it's because they had a much harder go. It was much more of a grind for them to get their developments approved. Compared to what it's like now for us new guys coming in trying to do infill development. It's much easier for us because they're changing policies, they're changing requirements. Don't get me wrong, there's still a lot of regulation. There's still a lot of application forms and check boxes to check, and if you're not experienced in those processes with the city, it can still be very frustrating like the everyday homeowner or even just a small mom and pop investor who doesn't do a lot of applications. It can still be very frustrating. So still definitely advocate for working with a professional to help you through that process, because it can definitely save you a lot of time and energy.
For sure.
We still get homeowners and even some small mom and pop investors who come to us with the application that they've just for even a secondary dwelling unit. I had a consultation this morning about where they've been struggling with getting a permit issued for 3 years for a secondary dwelling unit. And, I told them, okay, send me your drawings, send me your review letter at the city. And I'm going through these drawings and this review letter. I'm like, this stuff is so simple. These items that you've been
you've done so many, Ken.
struggling with. These are very simple requirements, for us, because we've done a few hundred. I think it might even be over 800 secondary dwelling unit that we've got approved, not just in Hamilton but across Ontario. So obviously our firm, especially in the SDU space, we have a lot of experience there. So some of this. So all that being said, is I could have saved this homeowner years, basically, and a lot of headache and frustration if they would have just came to a professional from the very beginning.
And that's what we were talking about before we got, got on the mic and, got on the podcast. We were talking about time, right? People have to value their time as much as they value their money, because time is money, essentially.
Yeah.
Right? 3 years of waiting time. They could have refinanced that as a duplex and pulled out some equity and bought another rental property.
Yeah.
Right? And going back to your point of letting a professional do it, folks, please let a professional do it. I'm telltale. I've went through it.
Yeah.
I've went through it where I've had someone do the drawings for me, but didn't do the running around with the city.
Yeah.
So I learned step by step what the city's looking for, and it's a full-time job.
It is. They do ask for a lot of things, and a lot of things they do ask for is there for a reason. It's not like it's just, arbitrary like regulation. It's there for a purpose,
safety,
for health, safety, watching out for the community and everything else. Like there's good reasons why we have these zoning bylaws and building codes in place.
For sure.
But yeah, like, even for city officials, city plan examiners in particular, like, they get submitted junk, from the general public.
I can imagine.
For a permit submission. And that also bogs down the system, right? When you have a plan examiner who's reviewing an application that is complete garbage because it wasn't drawn right, the person doesn't know the codes, they don't know the zoning bylaws, a homeowner's trying to do it themselves to save some bucks. Like that puts a lot of stress on the system as well. Yeah. And so we see a lot of plan examiners who like they see something, they're like, really pushing the homeowner to just just go out and hire a professional.
Yeah.
Because they're seeing like the issues that they're about to deal with.
Yeah, and you know what? I know the city of Hamilton has hired a bunch of new plans examiners. I know that because I'm always in contact with them, with the inspectors.
Yeah, there's a lot of new names that are coming through.
And some of them, God bless their souls, don't know as much as the old plans examiners. And some of them you're guiding. You're saying, no, this is the way you do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you have to be an advocate for your application.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of turnover at city building departments, not just in Hamilton, but many other municipalities do deal with a lot of high turnover. Why? It can be a stressful environment, right? When you're dealing with the general public.
Oh, yeah.
You're getting berated by applicants all the time. So there's a high turnover. And so, but with that comes a lot of new junior people, right? And so even some of the senior city staff struggle with training of the new junior people coming in. And especially if it's a new junior person, they don't know the policies. They don't know internal interpretations of zoning bylaw that their city has. And we as frequent applicants who are submitting like literally dozens and dozens of applications, like a month, we know the policies inside and out. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's lots of times where we have to, restate the policy for the plan examiner.
The plans examiner, exactly.
Or it's all about just fighting and advocating for your application to get heard and approved.
I'm going to tell you a funny story, Ken. I was doing a duplex last year, and you know how we got shut down for COVID. So the plans examiners were working from home. And working from home, Ken, I don't know if people actually work from home. You know what I mean? Like, city workers love you guys, but I don't know if they were working from home. It was just taking so long. It was just taking so long for her to review a minor tweak. Just needed one tweak to be reviewed for them to say, okay, Manny, go ahead. Yeah. And we got holding costs, and I got, everything's happening all at the same time. And I remember I was calling her, and she was at home, and I'm like, can you look at it now, please? And then I got frustrated. I got very frustrated. I'm like, listen, I know you're working from home. Oh, I left the binder at the office, and I got to go back there Monday. And I'm like, what do you need from me? I could get it done. And I was like, I could bring it to your home. She's like, by your home? I'm like, yeah. I said the address.
Yeah.
The next day I had the permit.
Oh, wow.
Because I was getting frustrated because there was like one small thing, and it was holding up like so much work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
And you can't get started, Ken.
No, I know you can't. Like until you have that building permit in your hand,
you can't get started.
You can't get started, right? And no, it can be very frustrating. And this is why, even for us frequent applicants, who we feel like we know the code well enough, or we know the zoning bylaws well enough, or the city processes well enough to to submit a complete application that is picture perfect. It still gets reviewed by a whole bunch of different types of people who have their own different interpretations or their own understanding or knowledge of the code. And sometimes, it can be very nitpicky.
Oh my God,
absolutely.
Some plans examiners are not too bad. Some are very strict.
Yeah.
I find the same with inspectors.
Yeah.
Some inspectors are like, okay, send me some pictures.
Yeah.
And then some inspectors, they're coming and they're looking underneath places, and I'm like, buddy, I have it stamped here already,
Yeah.
He's like, no, I want some sprinklers in the furnace room.
Yeah, it's everybody, like at the end of the day, you are dealing with human people, human beings, and like none of us are perfect.
No,
like, applicants, homeowners, designers who submit documents are not perfect. They make a lot of mistakes. Vice versa on the other side of the desk
for sure.
Is we have plan examiners, building inspectors. They're learning. They may not know everything. They make mistakes. They make wrong interpretations. At the end of the day, it's all about being professional,
100%.
being friendly.
You have to be friendly.
Start with a smile.
Yeah.
Please, thank you, being respectful.
Of course.
Those applicants or homeowners who go there and they show up and they bang on the desk at City Hall and
that doesn't work.
They fire off angry emails. It gets you nowhere.
That doesn't work.
So, like, if you're an investor out there and you're listening to this, and maybe you're an up-and-coming developer and you want to be a developer, you have to have good relationships with the city.
Well, it's very important. It's very important, especially if you're a developer. Like, it's not the only project you're going to be doing. So you have to have a good relationship with the city, and you get much further with, being sweet. And then baseball bat and threats and stuff like that. I completely agree with you. And I've met with inspectors that were moody on certain days. Yeah. Where it's not my fault. It was something else that happened with somewhere.
They could have just got off the phone with a very angry applicant on another project who doesn't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And they have to now deal with that emotion.
Yeah.
And then they pick up the phone and deal with you. Sometimes they can come across very, very jaded or just
but they're human, like you said. And you know what? Most of the inspectors are very good. Like I'd say 99% of the inspectors. Same with the plans examiners. But the city's bogged down, Ken.
Yeah, look, overall, there's been an influx of applications at our city building departments, right? And they struggle with staffing levels, and they're hiring a lot of new staff, and they just they're not hiring as many plan examiners that they should be to deal with the boom, I guess, if you will. And
there's been a massive boom. There's been a massive boom. Like you're saying, like on from the realtor side, a lot of my clients are like, okay, Manny, we did the duplexes, we did the triplexes. The numbers don't make sense right now. I want to get into the 6 units. I want to get into the 8 units. I want to get into the 12-unit buildings. Have you noticed that on your end?
Yeah, I've definitely seen, especially like I said, with the investor crowd, they need to be moving into the bigger buildings. The greater than 4 units. They got to be getting to 6, 8, 10, 12 unit building conversion projects. That's a bit of a different animal than a duplex conversion.
Yeah, for sure.
So you can't sit there and say, oh, I've done a duplex conversion or I've done a triplex or even a fourplex, and then go and try and do a 6, 8, 10, 12, 20 unit building conversion. It's a completely different animal, completely different zoning bylaws we look at.
Is it a different department for applications?
Can be. Like most cities have, they have their building plan examiners and they have their building engineers. Okay. And so like a 2-unit house, so 2 units or less, goes to the building plan examiners, kind of more low level plan examiners, if you will. 3 units or more is considered a building under the building code, and they go to the building engineering department.
So it's like a commercial zone, probably.
Yeah. So there's definitely different codes that we look at. There's different zoning bylaws that you look at. The bigger the development, there could be other planning approvals that need to be that are required. Like maybe a minor variance could be anything over 10 units needs site plan approval. So we have site plan applications, and if you're really looking to push the permitted uses on the site, you might need a zoning bylaw amendment, and these are all higher level planning approvals so those come with their own, levels of complexity. And as you keep scaling further into actual new development, land development, new construction, the amount of documents and processes increases, right?
Yeah, I could just imagine.
Because now you need to get into archaeological studies or heritage impact studies, parking
phase
studies,
1, phase 2,
environmentals, phase 1, phase 2, stormwater management, site servicing, grading, drainage. The list goes on and on and on.
Wow.
When you get into the land development space, so like you talk to any big developer, they started out just with one single family home.
Yeah.
They started out doing a little maybe duplex conversion. And they slowly worked up to the big like the big towers that they're working on now. So it is a journey, it is a process.
Yeah.
I would never recommend to a first time investor or developer to go from like zero or going from a single family home or duplex conversion and jump right into doing like 34 unit stacked townhouse development. Like I'm doing a 34 unit stacked towns right now.
Wow.
And that's been a learning curve for me, because I started out as a small little guy just doing basement apartments, right? And now I'm getting into townhouse developments and new development.
That's amazing, man.
So
Congrats.
that's a learning curve. That's a process, but I didn't get there overnight. Like I grinded it out, doing literally hundreds and hundreds of permit applications on smaller projects to kind of learn the ropes and learn the skill set and learn how to work with the city and learn the different development processes in order to get there.
That's amazing, man. 34 stacked townhouses. That's amazing.
Yeah,
man.
and we're even looking at bigger developments now. But now, like, I understand and I appreciate the process, right? And this is part of it, is just understanding and appreciating the process. For what it is, and knowing ahead of time what you need. Right. A lot of roadblocks that we come up against in the permitting process is because we didn't realize that we needed something. Or we missed a detail, or we missed an application form, or we missed a zoning bylaw requirement, and it causes us to take 10 steps backwards, right? Which causes delay.
And this is why it's important to work with a professional, because how would you know that if you don't work with a professional?
Yeah.
Like the duplex stuff, I do not advise anybody to do it on their own. I don't advise it.
And the duplex conversion is a relatively easy, low-level kind of approval to get. But again, it's like it depends on your experience level, right? Like, going back to really working with professionals, and even myself, like on these larger developments, like I'm working with a lot of other professionals, other consultants, planners, cost consultants, feasibility consultants, civil engineers, structural engineers, heritage experts.
You must be learning a lot.
Accessibility consultants, like there's a lot that goes into it, right?
Yeah.
But I look at it as like as the developer, even if you're doing a little duplex conversion, you as the homeowner, like you're the developer. And you have to bring your team together. Who's on that team? It could be your architect, your engineer, your HVAC designer, plumbing designer, what have you. But you're the quarterback of your team, right? At the end of the day, the puck stops with you, right?
100%.
And so if something has fallen off the rails, if you will, on your submission, there's been big delays. Well, maybe it's a problem with the quarterback.
And you're absolutely right. You know what? That it's happened to me before.
Yeah.
So I'm living proof of it, and that's why I work with professionals, because you know what? They've studied that field. They've probably done hundreds of applications like yourself. And why would I try to learn while they've already learned? They've already went through it. They could streamline it for you.
Well, this is like a lot of things in life and in business life and home life is you want to turn decades into days, right? And the way you turn decades into days is by working with those who've done it before you. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like everything that we're doing has all been done before. It's all
been done before.
I'm not the first guy in town to design a house to do a land development. No. I'm learning from those who've done it already, learning their mistakes, and that allows me to turn decades into days.
And it's fun.
I do that with my business consultants, and guys who've really scaled up their businesses into multi-million-dollar revenue businesses. Like I look up to them, I pay them, to coach me. Even on social media content, we our office, our team, we hire experts in the social media space, in YouTube, creating YouTube videos and Instagram reels, and we pay big money to these guys to really help teach us and train us how to make great content, great videos. Right?
And you have to, and that's life, right? You got to be able to know what your strengths are, and stick to your strengths. You know what I mean? Stick to what you do best, and as you go along your process and you want to learn more, talk to the professionals, get in contact with people, and make the right relationships. It's all about relationships at the end of the day, Ken. Yeah. You have the right relationships, and you hang out, with the right people, You are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with, right?
Absolutely.
So if you hang out with 5 people that are millionaires and doing things, you're going to do well. If you hang out with people that are not doing so well, then you're probably not going to do so well.
Yeah, like your network is your net worth. Like all of those sayings, it's so true though. Like, even in like the land development world, if you will, you start hanging out with other developers that are also doing pretty cool projects. Like it's hard not to eventually you see yourself doing those projects and you end up doing those projects.
Yeah, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
What I wanted to ask you, what is the difference between like I know the process of doing a duplex, right? With the drawings and everything. Is the process of doing a duplex and a 6-plex or 8-plex similar? Or is it different a little bit? Does it take longer for a 6-plex, 8-plex? I know it may take a little bit longer because of the drawings may be more intricate and more detailed. But are the processes the same? What's the difference in terms of...
Well, so whether you're doing a small little duplex conversion or you're going to go and build a townhouse development, the process is very similar.
Okay.
Either the process could be very, very short, like only a couple things you have to look into or check or verify, or it could be very long because you have to do a lot of steps in between. But, it all starts with, confirming the zoning of the property, the permitted use. Like, is 2 units allowed or is 8 units allowed? Right. And then, is there a parking consideration that goes with that?
Yeah.
Or the zoning, we have to review the zoning bylaw and make sure that, can we comply? Can this property...
So do you find that changing a lot, the zoning bylaw?
Well, zoning changes all the time.
You got to stay on top of that.
Municipalities are always updating their zoning bylaw. So, like, you can't just download the bylaw once. Like, you have to always be, like, going back to the website and double-checking, make sure that you're looking at the most current bylaw. Because bylaws get updated, a couple times a year.
Yeah, they change a lot.
Like, especially now with all the changes happening with provincial policy, municipalities are therefore updating all of their bylaws. But what I'm trying to get to is that you have to confirm the zoning for the property, and that property can comply with zoning. Or if it can't, do you have to go for a minor variance, or do you have to go through a zoning bylaw amendment because the zoning permits 2 units, but you want to build 8 units, well, that doesn't comply as a permitted use. You have to go through a rezoning exercise.
How difficult is something like that, the rezoning exercise? Have you done many of those?
Yeah, I've done a bunch of the rezonings. And again, there's kind of a process for the rezoning. It does start with the pre-consultation. And, in order to have a proper pre-consultation with staff, you need to have a good development concept. And so you take a couple steps back and say, well, what do I need to create a good development concept? Well, you need a site plan, a site plan for how the site's going to function. How do you create a site plan? Well, I need a survey to start.
Oh, there's so many checklists, right?
So this is where knowing what you need ahead of time when you're entering into a new project or into a new purchase to redevelop a site, you know what documents you need well in advance. And knowing what you need in advance saves you so much time on waiting or going 100%. Backwards to get those documents, right? So, making sure you have a proper survey. I think every person who buys a home in Ontario should have a survey. Whether it's a single family home or a multifamily or whatever, get a legal lot survey. You don't know what you're buying until you see the survey.
That's true.
Right?
That's true. You don't,
like you're spending a lot of money on a piece of land and a building, and you don't even know your lot boundaries. Like, to me, that's an issue, right?
Yeah,
so get a survey from day one.
It's funny that you bring that up. One of my friends, he bought a piece of farmland outside of Stony Creek, a little bit outside of Stony Creek, and the police called him one day, and he's like, there's illegal stuff happening in your farmhouse. It's like, my farmhouse? I don't have a farmhouse. It's got like 10 acres. I don't have a farmhouse. He's like, no, it's under your name. It's registered. The land is registered under you. He's like, where? He's like, behind him, the neighbor, there's a farmhouse.
Yeah.
He didn't know that he owned that farmhouse.
Exactly.
And they were doing illegal things in there. The police came, they shut it down. It was like a meth lab or something.
Oh, wow.
And this guy's like, I didn't know. He called me and I directed him to a lawyer, and he found out that was his land.
Yeah.
And to your point, how do you know until you have the survey? He bought the property, he didn't even know, and he's been there for 7-8 years.
So many issues can be avoided up front if we had a proper survey.
Yeah,
right. We get a lot of kickbacks from city officials because lot boundaries are wrong, or setbacks are wrong because nobody's working off of a proper survey to start. Any sort of neighbor dispute involving a fence line or a property line, the only way it gets resolved is by getting a legal survey.
Yeah.
And so anyways, it's a very important document to have, absolutely. And it's the very first document we need to start our development journey.
Yeah, that's the first thing that they ask is a survey, right?
Yeah, and topographical survey is the very first document we need in order to create anything, right? And so, and that can take time to get that document if you don't have one. You can't complete property records requests or freedom of information requests at the municipality to try and pull that survey from the city record if they happen to have one.
Do you find a lot of, like at the older places, they don't have surveys? Like the older...
No, the older the property, the less legible the documents are, or they're non-existent.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think every real estate transaction that happens, anybody out there buying a house or a property, pull the property records, get a zoning verification, get a legal survey. So
zoning
you know
verification.
Exactly what you're buying.
Zoning verification is huge too, because it could say on the back end, like we have a program called Geo Warehouse for realtors, it could say duplex. Yeah. But when you pull the zoning verification, it still says single family.
Well, I have a love-hate relationship with realtors and real estate listings and how they market and advertise properties. I don't trust them for the life of me because they do stuff like Geo Warehouse and all this other stuff, or realtor. You don't trust that stuff. You can't. If you're doing proper due diligence as a homeowner, you go directly to the source, which is the city, and you pull the records.
Yeah.
Because a realtor may not know that. Like, they may take information that the homeowner tells them. But the homeowner may not even know.
Yeah, and that happens a lot with square footage. Ken. Yeah. How big is your house? 2,000 square feet. And then you pull it on MPAC, because we get it through MPAC, and it's like 15 or 16. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, when I bought it, they told me 2,000.
Yeah.
So they could have misinformed you, because back then, it wasn't a prerequisite.
Yeah. And we see this a lot with illegal uses in the city, where a homeowner has bought in, something, thinking it's a triplex or a duplex, when in fact it's only a single family home, and then they have to spend a lot of extra money trying to retrofit it after the fact. So you can avoid a lot of headaches and issues just pulling proper records, getting that survey, zoning verification, right? Mm-hmm. And this is part of the process of land development. Being a developer, whether it's a secondary dwelling unit or a larger development, this is part of the process, is documents, good records. Mm-hmm. Starting with good records, good documents, so we know the starting point, and how we go from there. But a zoning bylaw amendment, starts with the pre-consultation, development concepts, a meeting with a representative of every single department at the city. And then from there, you get your pre-consultation summary report, which is basically our roadmap for land development. So any sort of land development project starts with a pre-consultation, and we get a summary of all of staff's comments from every single department that would have a say or an input or a review as part of the approval. And so that's our roadmap, and we follow that, and it tells us all the documents we need. Zoning bylaw amendment application, site plan application. We're going to need a grading drainage, heritage impact study, parking study, accessibility study,
levies and stuff like that.
A wind analysis, shadow study, like whatever it is, depending on the type of
wind analysis too.
So we follow that pre-con summary report as our roadmap. So
like, and that's huge, right? Like the professionals would know where to go to find certain things. And if you're starting out, you wouldn't know. So we'd have to contact a professional. So you obviously have contacts with surveyors and appraisers and all of these professionals within the realm of what you do.
Your power team grows. When you get into land development, your power team grows exponentially because, when you're doing a duplex conversion or a small tri or four, what do you need? You need the architect, you need the engineer, structural engineer,
contractor.
You need an HVAC designer and the contractor, obviously. Yeah. But like your power team is very small. Yeah. Right. Once you get into the bigger stuff, now you need a civil engineer. You need like a lighting designer, electrical engineer. Like heritage consultants. The list goes on and on depending on the. So like. This is what I'm saying. Like you're the quarterback of your team, and your job as a developer is to bring all of these different consultants together around the same vision for your project, and to get all of those documents and technical documents and application forms together and submit it to the city.
Yeah.
That's your job as the developer.
And that's huge. And so where do you see yourself and your business growing to? Like, I know you started with the Legal Second Suites, and you said that you might possibly be rebranding. And
yeah, like the Legal Second Suites is where I started, and and this is where people still come to us for secondary suites, but it is such a small part of what we do now. Because as our investor clients scale up and get into larger projects, so do we. And so we're doing so much more than just SDUs. Like, we're pretty much a land use planning consulting developing firm. And so we're helping lots of people go through the zoning bylaw amendments, going through site plan application, getting lot severances, surveys, helping them with their grading drainage plans, for a lot of different types and size and scales of projects. Like, on the big end, we're doing, like, there's a big tower, two towers in downtown Hamilton. One's like a 128 unit building, one's another like a 256.
Wow.
We're helping those institutional owners basically look at the existing building and see where we can add more units. In the case of these two towers, we can add between I think it was like 40 to 60 dwelling units between the complex.
Wow.
Right? And so we're helping them through the city processes to get those approvals.
Wow.
So that's one example. Like, another example is we're helping an owner who purchased a vacant community center in Hagersville, so a commercial community center, and we're taking it through. It's like an adaptive reuse of a community center into probably 14 or 15 dwelling units.
Oh, wow.
And it requires a zoning bylaw amendment because it's zoned,
So we gotta get
institutional,
rezoning done.
and we have to rezone it to residential.
Oh, okay,
So you have to go through a rezoning process. You need all these studies and drawings. And
Wow.
right? And so we help these property owners going through that process. I'm doing it for myself as well because I'm a very active investor.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
not only am I doing it for myself firsthand, I'm also offering those services and helping other property owners and developers.
And that's massive, man. That's massive. Like, I didn't know you did all these things. And I'm so happy that you came on and shared all these things.
So it's so much more than secondary dwelling.
Yeah.
This is where, like, I've been considering doing like a rebrand. I love marketing. I love advertising.
Yeah.
I love social media. I believe strongly in a good brand identity. And we've grown so much more than our legalsecondsuites.com brand identity. Like, we're a designing, planning, consulting firm. Like, we're competing against some of the larger consulting firms in the city now.
That's great. That's great. And it's from 2018 till now. That's huge, man.
Yeah.
That's huge. And
I got a great team. I got great guys in the office, great designers on my team. But I also work with a lot of amazing, great investors and developers who really push me and challenge me to get into new, crazy, fun, exciting projects.
Why not? Why not? And you're having fun, you're learning, and you're growing the business. And I don't think you're going to turn down secondary suites, even if you rebrand it.
No, for us, they're so easy now. We do them with our eyes closed. And that's good for just like the consistent, like the bread and butter of the company, just good, consistent work that's easy for the guys.
Yeah.
While we kind of like, take on these more complex, more complicated types of projects that really does push and challenge us to get better. And so it's like a bit of both. I can't have everything super easy.
Yeah.
That gets boring.
Yeah,
right?
that's true. That's true.
But you can't have everything like overly complex either.
Yeah.
Because that can get very stressful.
Oh, I imagine.
And can take a lot of time, right? And so like we need good active revenues from like the little second suite stuff. In and out, in and out, in and out.
Yeah.
While we kind of tackle the bigger stuff. So.
And it makes sense. So how could someone get a hold of you, Ken? What's the best way to get a hold of you? Through your website, through your social media?
Yeah, obviously right now, until we do a rebrand, it's still legalsecondsuites.com.
Yeah.
It's the best way to reach out to me. You can book a free consultation where I'll walk through the property with you and take a look at what you want to do and whether or not we can do it. And then, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. It's all just my name, Ken Bekendam. I'm the only Ken Bekendam on planet Earth. So if you Google my name, you'll find me. There's lots of content online as well, YouTube. So
awesome. We're gonna add all of the links in this podcast. Thank you so much, Ken, for coming on. This was very insightful. I didn't know you did all these things. I thought it was just secondary dwellings that you did, maybe triplexes, maybe eightplexes, sixplexes, but now the land development, this is all music to my ears because I have clients that you could possibly help that are doing that.
Absolutely. Send them my way. Be more than happy to discuss.
Thank you so much, Ken.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, brother.